This is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
Yes, Roster Watch Nation, welcome back. What is up? It's Monday night football, December 16th. We got the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, Atlanta Falcons, and Raiders. I don't understand this schedule management by the NFL. I get that we're a week out from Christmas, but having two Monday Night Football games 30 minutes apart from each other in kickoff time, I don't know what's going on here. You got a divisional matchup, Bears and Vikings, generally a very good game. No bias included. The Bears just play the Vikings really good. It's just the way it is. Falcons, Raiders, East Coast, West Coast, 8:30 kick. Is that the theory here that you get a 5:30 local? Is that the time that they're playing 5:30 local and 7 o'clock local in the central time zone? But for the East Coasters, it's just straight up 8 and 8:30. Like, it don't make any sense. This thing should be, if you want to kick a game off at 8:15, sure, do that. Just like Sunday Night Football and Thursday Night Football, kick a game off at 8:15, 8:20. But make sure that first game is like 6:30. This is dumb. And for those reasons, I'm not taking anything in the Raider game. I think, you could obviously talk yourself into it tonight. I'm not talking myself into it because I think that the theory of having back-to-back Monday Night Football games at the same exact time is complete and utter stupid. It's just dumb. You could argue for whatever reason you want to say that it does make sense because they're cornering the entire market of television for the 3-hour span between 8 and 11:38 and midnight, and that if you're not watching one game, you're going to be watching the other game. And if you're on YouTube TV, maybe you're going to have the doubles. I'm not even going to have the double box up. I'm just going to have the one game on because, quite frankly, Kirk Cousins could go out there and throw 4 more picks for all I care. So, Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, that's the game I want to watch. It's the game we saw just a few short weeks ago in Chicago. This one finished out 30-27 back in week 12. The Vikings were up in this game 27-16 with 30 seconds left in the game. Keenan Allen scores a touchdown from Caleb Williams. They go for 2. They get the octopus. It's 27-24. They get the ball back. Cairo Santos hits a 48-yarder. All of a sudden, they're in overtime. So the Vikings were up 11 in that game. In that game, Sam Darnold threw for 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caleb Williams threw for 340 and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones rushed for a hundo. Jordan Addison had 160. TJ Hawkinson had 100. DJ Moore had 100. Keenan Allen had 86. It was a big game for almost everybody, included for fantasy perspective. And I think you're going to end up seeing something similar to that once again in this game on Monday night. So let me pop up my screen here. We're going to go on over to Underdog Fantasy. You see it right here on the screen, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code ROSTER to get a deposit bonus of 50% on up to $1,000. So again, you deposit $1,000, you're going to get $500. You deposit $500, you're going to get $250. You deposit $250, you get $125. So on and so forth. You deposit 10, you're going to get 5 back. You can drop all 15 into tonight's game. Monday Night Football, Vikings against the Bears. You also have, again, the Falcons and the Raiders in the cockamamie West Coast Bowl of teams that nobody cares about on this beautiful Monday, December 16th. So let me pop up the screen here quickly over on Underdog, and we'll get to going. All right, I'll take this down quick. Put this over here. All right, here's the screen. Here's where we're going to start off. First and foremost, we just talked about the passing totals for these guys in those respective games literally just a few weeks ago. But let's start out at the tight end position. So first and foremost, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, the last couple of games, he had 3 receptions for 26 against the Lions, 7 for 64 against the Vikings, 3 for 42 against the Packers. 3 divisional games, 3 good games for Cole Kmet. That number tonight comes in for Cole Kmet in the receptions department at 2.5. So we're going to go ahead and take the higher for Cole Kmet in that one. One of my favorite plays on the Vikings side is not a fantasy relevant player, but it's Andrew Van Ginkel. They're offering a half a sack to you. If you look at Andrew Van Ginkel, and this is going to sound, you're like, wait, who? Andrew Van Ginkel. He hasn't had a sack the last 2 games, but before that, he had a sack against the Bears, 2 sacks against the Titans, a sack against the Jags. He's had 2 against the Lions. He had 1 in each of the first 3 games of the year, Giants, Niners, and Texans. He's also got 2 picks, 2 pick sixes on the season, multiple forced fumbles. This guy is a very low-key long shot for defensive player of the year. He's got 9 sacks in the season, 62 tackles, 2 pick sixes, and multiple forced fumbles. It doesn't make any sense why he's not in the actual conversation, but he should be for defensive player of the year. So half sack here for Andrew Van Ginkel. We're going to go higher than for the Iowa native here against the Chicago Bears. He did have a sack in that last game, like I said, against the Bears, as did Jonathan Grenard, the edge rusher that they traded for from Houston. He had 2 sacks against Chicago the last time around. All right, now I'm looking at quarterback, and you go, well, you talked about the quarterbacks already. The passing totals right here, as you can see on the screen, is Sam Darnold 252.5, and we got Caleb Williams for 220.5 passing yards. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Swift is dinged up right now, questionable to play. Last week, Caleb Williams threw for 134 yards, 74% against the Niners. They got smashed in San Francisco, kind of a weird spot for them. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, Caleb has 7 passing touchdowns. His passing yards have went 231 against the Pack, 340 against the Vikings, 256 against the Lions, and 51%. And then last week was 134. I think that 134 really brought this Caleb Williams passing number down, even though I do think he's going to bounce back and catapult past this 220 passing yards mark. He's been pretty solid for he hasn't thrown a pick since I think October 13th. So we're going on 2 months and 3 days now for Caleb Williams. I think he's playing at a different level, but this team's just not quite there. You look at Sam Darnold, 347 against the Falcons last week, 235 against the Cardinals at home, 330 against the Bears, 246 against the Titans. His number tonight is 252. I think it's a strong number, but he has hit it in 3 of the last 6 games. He's hitting this 250 number pretty consistently throughout the year. If he's not hitting it, he's at least really close. 246 against the Titans, 241 against the Jags, 235 against the Cardinals. So the cool thing on Underdog, if you really want to try something, you could go over here, and instead of taking the 259, you could drop it down to 239. You're like, well, how about we just go 239? You could higher, you go 0.9 times your money to lower that number. I can lower the Sam Darnold number to what I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and lower that number. And then you know what? Just because we're here, I haven't even prepared for the other cockamamie football game on Monday night. But just because we're here, let's go over here and let's check out what they do have for the Falcons and Raiders. All right, so Kirk Cousins, 1.5 passing touchdowns, 240 passing yards. So he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in a hot minute, and he's thrown a ton of picks. I think the last time Kirk Cousins threw a touchdown pass, it was November 3rd at home against the Cowboys. They've had 3 of the last 4 games on the road. He's thrown for 300 yards in 2 of those 4 games, coming against the Saints and the Vikings on the road. They're on the road again this week at the Raiders. 239 is probably an interesting number. As far as fantasy terms go, I think this whole game sets up for Bijan, London, Mooney, probably not Pitts. You know what's going to be? I wonder what they're going to give you for a half touch. They're not even going to give you a half touchdown. I was going to say, I'll take 1 touchdown pass if you give it to me from Kirk Cousins, but they're not even going to offer that. Let's check out Mr. Brock Bowers, the most legendary tight end in the history of sport. I mean, you talk about a matchup here tonight. The one thing I guess you could be looking at is one of the most overhyped tight ends of all time, and also one of the most hyped tight ends of all time. That's Kyle Pitts versus Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers' number tonight is 6.5 receptions, 66.5 receiving yards. Last week he had 3 receptions. Before that he had 10. Before that 4, 13, 5. So over the course of the last month and a half, it's been every other that he's hit this number. Otherwise he's been significantly under that number. Again, this is Monday night, prime time. Do you go for the Brock Bowers number 6.5? It's kind of a high total for receptions. They have a target number out here for us. I'd be interested. 9. He's 67 yards away from 1,000. So if he hits this total tonight, 66.5. Wow, they perfectly put that number. So if he hits this, he's going to go over 1,000 for the season. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and take Brock Bowers higher than 66.5, only because if he hits 67, he hits 1,000 on the season. So let's go ahead and add Brock Bowers in there. So those are the 5 picks. Cole Kmet, 2.5 receptions. Andrew Van Ginkel gets us a sack. Caleb Williams, 220 passing yards. Sam Darnold, we adjusted down to 239.5 passing yards. And Brock Bowers, 66 receiving yards to get him to 1,000 on the season. I appreciate you guys tapping in. Gooner Boy, shout out to you. Appreciate you jumping into the chat this morning, 10 o'clock Eastern time zone. We appreciate you guys. Click that like button, click subscribe on the way out. RosterWatch Nation, go to rosterwatch.com. You can get all the picks on a weekly basis. You get all the rankings. You get everything from DFS. And I'm even working on 2025 rookie spotlight columns right now. Going to be up at rosterwatch.com this week, including my NFL mock draft 3.0 will be up this week at rosterwatch.com. If you go over to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code ROSTER to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.